Welcome, YouTubers, gamers, and fellow hobbyists. Welcome to Airbrushing for Beginners. And in this episode, I'm going to talk you through some of the things I do before I actually start painting and using my airbrush. It's kind of the routine that I go through each and every time I use my airbrush, or at least before I use my airbrush. So, without further ado, let's get started. Now, assuming of course you're all set up and ready to go with your compressor, you got your PSI set to the correct whatever it is you want it to be set for, you've got adequate ventilation through the use of windows and doors. Okay, are you ready then? Then let's begin. Okay, so this is pretty much everything you will need to start on your airbrush endeavor. So every time before I start, obviously you can see you got your airbrush all set up. Just a quick run through of what you need. So make sure you got your mask. I always recommend getting the kind of the best mask you can afford really for airbrushing. You've got your ventilation, or perhaps even an airbrush booth that actually extracts the fumes for you, which is great. Okay, gloves, okay, they're not essential, but they're very handy because, you know, airbrushing can be messy. Okay, paper towel, which you will need, the airbrush of course, your paints, some distilled water, some retarder, and some airbrush thinner. And of course I always use my my old toothbrush for once you've been doing a bit of airbrushing. Sometimes if you're spraying away and it comes in, it's not quite coming out, as it clogged up a bit, usually a quick rub of the end will sort that out for you. Okay, so before I put any paint in and start applying it to my models or canvas or whatever it is you've got going, I'll get some water first, because perhaps I haven't used my airbrush for a while. I'll put some into my airbrush and I'll just make sure that it actually is working, which it appears to be doing. There we are. Yep. There we go. Another thing I will do before I apply now paint, well, before I put any paint in, one, is it an airbrush paint? Yes or no? If it's an airbrush paint, usually they're thin enough that you don't need to thin them down at all. Although thinning is always, it's not a bad thing to thin them as well anyway. But airbrush paints usually come in a dropper bottle style affair, so you can just squeeze it in. So paints like Citadel, P3 and things like that do not. So and plus then some of them aren't airbrush friendly, some of them are. But either way, you're going to need to pop your lid open. You need to get yourself some of these pipettes. So you open the lid, squeeze the pipette, suck it up, and then pop it into your airbrush. And then if you need to thin it down, airbrush thinner, a few drops of that. Now also what you'll need is a stirrer of some kind. Now for this I've got these kind of barbecue bamboo stick things, which are handy. A old brush, the upside down of an old brush, works equally well. But before I put any of the paints in, I always put a bit of retarder in. Now this I do to coat the needle with the retarder. Do a bit of a black flow first, so to get those bubbles going up. That sends the backwash up to the needle, up to the point of where the cup is, and then I recommend doing it in your pot, but spray it out here, and then that covers your tip with drying retardant. And I've put my drying retarder into this dropper bottle because it was easy, because the bottle I bought it from wasn't a squeezy bottle, and I just transferred it into here. But coating your needle with paint drying retarder will prevent tip dry from happening as much. In fact, I don't ever seem to suffer with tip dry, but in the past when I first started, I did, before I started coating my needle with the retarder. Because another thing, tips, when you're putting your paint in, if you've got a big massive model, say something huge, and you want to prime the whole thing or something like that, do not fall into the trap of filling your entire cup with paint, thinking, oh, that's okay, I could spray it now, it'll last. Like, no. And there are two reasons. Well, there's one main reason for that is it will, as it goes down, it will dry on the sides of the cup. Sometimes little small flecks of paint, they just peel off and go into the cup, and then they go through the airbrush, they clog the needle here as it comes out. Another tip, always put your cap on your cup. It helps the airflow, maintain a decent pressure. It doesn't escape through the paint or like in air bubbles and that sort of thing. So it just provides a much more fluid, even spray coverage, and that way you can just start painting. Just air in there at the moment. Now some airbrush cleaners actually lubricate the needle, which is all fine and well. I would use that more for the end of the day, for when you're actually cleaning the airbrush. But to get going, all you need really is a bit of water just to make sure it's actually working, because there's no sense in putting paint in first, spraying it and finding out nothing's coming out, because then you have to dismantle and clean, find the cause of the problem, whatever it may be. It doesn't really matter, but put some water in, do that. That's nothing. What you wasted? A bit of water, nothing. So do that. Make sure it's coming out fine. Like I say, I do it on a piece of paper usually. Make sure the spray pattern is fine. Put some retarder in. Coat the needle with the retarder. Do the backflow thing, and then spray a bit out so it's all got drying retarder on it. Then put my paint in. If I need to, put my thinners in, give it a little mix up, and good to go. Thanks very much for watching. I hope that's been of some help to absolute beginners. I know it would have helped me when I very first started, because I had no idea whatsoever. I just thought airbrush, cool, gotta have a go, but I knew nothing. And a lot of trial and error ensues as well. Thankfully we have videos now. I know there are a lot of videos out there for this, but there's only one me, so but yeah, on a serious note, thanks for watching. Remember, all brushes lead to all, and I'll see you on the next video.